Hey, it's been a little bit. So, I do have some more edited videos on the way, but I had some major life events back in January and February, which severely delayed my ability to edit them. So, I did want a video out for April at the very least, to kind of show, hey, I'm here, I'm alive, and this is one of my attempts to do that. I'm going to preface this by saying that you are more than free to just listen to this video in the background. There's not going to be a ton of editing involved in this. But it's more going to focus on a thought that I've been mulling over. If you don't know, Universal opened a third theme park in Orlando by the name of Epic Universe. If you do know about it, that's probably because it's the East Coast home of Super Nintendo World, the major theme park land for Nintendo which prominently features the Mario series and a subland based on the Donkey Kong series. However, this is actually the third Super Nintendo World. The first one opened up in Japan and a drastically smaller version in California soon after. The one in Orlando is the closest to the Japanese original, with a possible expansion in the future. I have attended this land twice. One for the grand opening, where I was totally there, I just needed the bathroom during the live stream, and back on April 4th, 2026. By reading the title, you can tell I find Super Nintendo World really weird in regards to it being a Universal theme park land. The first thing I'm going to say though is that, by all means, this is a fantastic land. The reveal of the land through Princess Peach's castle is nothing short of breathtaking, and probably the only portal in the park to give such a feeling, as you need an escalator which builds anticipation. The two levels of the land makes it feel so much bigger and hides the sightlines, which are iffy around the park. There's so much energy and color to engage you as you make your way through the land, with so many animatronics and realizations of concepts from the games. While I have mixed opinions on the rides themselves, they're in no way bad, and they actually do a great job of bringing you into the world of Nintendo. Clearly, when I mean weird, I don't mean bad. It's more, when I think of Universal, I don't think of Nintendo or video games. Now, for the record, I was around when Islands of Adventure was brand new, and I saw ads for Universal Studios Orlando on old VHS tapes. Universal Studios was way more focused on films and television, while Islands of Adventure was more an early example of basing a land off a singular franchise, albeit those still based around film and television. Video games being in theme parks, at least in the United States, was kinda sorta a thing, but to a very limited degree. Even at Universal Studios Japan, from what I could tell, there have been video game characters, but the parks were still firmly based around film and television. However, Nintendo and Universal teaming up to create Super Nintendo World completely blows previous efforts out of the water. Now, you might have raised an eyebrow. After all, I brought up Islands of Adventure, which has Seuss Landing, Marvel Superhero Island, and The Lost Continent, which aren't directly based on films or TV. Now, while that is true, I feel Seuss stories, Marvel comics, and those based on fantasy stories have been adapted more than plenty into film and television before the park. Besides, to me, they always felt like an extension to the movie studio idea, as they relied more on hard narratives to convey their attractions. Super Nintendo World is largely trying to convey gameplay through their rides, rather than a hard narrative, with the possible exception of Donkey Kong Minecart Madness. But even then, the narrative doesn't go that much deeper than the games. On top of that, for over 30 years, I've only ever known Universal as a film studio, and their parks being an extension of that. Universal parks used to highlight the film aspects of their rides.
Ride the movie!
So here comes Super Nintendo World. Is it taking you into the narrative of a particular series? Not really. Again, the gameplay is more of a focus. Does it take you behind the scenes of how video games are made? Not at all, but then again, Universal Parks haven't focused on that in decades. Super Nintendo World is the natural extension of where the parks have been going ever since the introduction of Harry Potter. What also adds to this feeling is that it's the only land in the park to fully encircle you. All the other lands have an issue where you can see the outside world or into Celestial Park. Meanwhile, Super Nintendo World feels like a theme park in and of itself, and secluded away from anything you'd see as Universal Studios. However, there is one part that sticks out like a sore thumb, namely the trophies in Mario Kart Bowser's Challenge. All these trophies are perfectly in line with the series, and then you see the Universal Cup, which is just the Universal logo. It's the one part that just rudely reminds me that this is overtly from Universal Studios. It just feels jarring, considering that this is a Universal park, a film studio park, and yet here we are in a video game themed land. And also, going a little off script, video games have just been their own thing for so long. Like, it's actually a pretty relatively new thing that video games have been breaking into the mainstream. I would say about 2010s is largely when they did, or if you want to be really technical, you could say around the PS2 era. Now, I'm not going to say I'm a video game expert, and I know that there were Mario cartoons or movies, but the cartoons were all, even when I was a kid, they were old and outdated. The Mario movie came out in 1993. I was like 1. This isn't exactly an in-depth video. This was more about putting my musings out there. While I do have plans to talk about the park more in depth, I would like to hear your thoughts. I just wanted to get this weird opinion out.
If it happens on the big screen, it comes to life at Universal. Universal Entertainment. Universal excitement.